This is continuing coverage of United States versus Sean Diddy Combs from the Hidden Killers podcast and True Crime Today.
Picture this. You're at the Intercontinental Hotel in Los Angeles. It's March 2016, and security guard Israel Flores is doing his rounds when he stumbles onto something that's going to change everything. Sean Diddy Combs is in the hallway, and he's just finished beating the hell out of his girlfriend Cassie Ventura. Flores locks eyes with one of the most powerful men in music, and Combs gives him what Flores later describes as a devilish stare. Then comes the tall stack of money. The unspoken message is crystal clear. Take this and forget what you saw. Flores doesn't take the bribe, and 9 years later, he's sitting in a Manhattan courtroom telling this story to a jury that's about to hear some of the wildest allegations ever brought against a music mogul. So here we are, June 2025, and Sean Combs is fighting for his life in federal court. Not his actual life, though at 55 facing potential life in prison, maybe it amounts to the same thing. The government says he ran a criminal enterprise for 2 decades that makes the mob look like a knitting circle. We're talking sex trafficking, kidnapping, arson, bribery, and something called freak-offs that sound like they belong in a horror movie, not a music executive's calendar. Let me take you through what's been happening in that 26th floor courtroom in Manhattan, because if you think you've heard crazy celebrity trial stories before, buckle up. This one's got pregnant witnesses, exploding Porsches, and Kanye West showing up to watch from the overflow room like it's must-see TV. The road to trial itself is a story worth telling. After the September 2024 arrest, Combs' legal team goes through some changes. Judge Andrew Carter recuses himself in October, and the case lands with Judge Arun Subramanian. Then comes the first superseding indictment in January 2025, where prosecutors expand their timeline back to 2004 and add 2 more alleged victims. They're not just saying Combs was bad for a few years, they're alleging a 20-year criminal enterprise. By April, there's another superseding indictment adding more charges related to Victim 2 for conduct between 2021 and 2024. The most crucial pre-trial ruling comes April 25th, 2025, when Judge Subramanian decides that hotel surveillance video is admissible. This is the video that shows Combs attacking Cassie in that hotel hallway, the one that made potential jurors gasp during selection. The same day we learned Combs rejected a plea deal. We don't know what the government offered, but turning it down when they have video evidence of you committing assault, that's either supreme confidence or supreme delusion. The arrest happened September 16th, 2024 at the Park Hyatt in Manhattan. Combs probably thought he was untouchable, but the feds had other plans. The next day, they unseal this indictment that reads like a Netflix crime series pitch: racketeering conspiracy, sex trafficking by force, fraud or coercion, and transportation for purposes of prostitution. His lawyers offer $50 million bail. $50 million! That's more than most countries' GDP. But Judge Andrew Carter isn't buying what they're selling. He's worried about witness tampering, and honestly, after hearing the evidence, can you blame him? So Diddy gets a one-way ticket to the Metropolitan Detention Center in Brooklyn, where he's been sitting ever since. Now, finding a jury for this circus proves harder than getting Taylor Swift tickets. Potential jurors keep saying they've seen that hotel video, the one CNN aired showing Combs attacking Cassie. One juror candidate calls it damning evidence. Another says it's shocking and scary. Combs is sitting there shaking his head like he can't believe people formed opinions before hearing his side. Eventually, they seat 12 jurors plus 6 alternates, and we're off to the races. Assistant U.S. Attorney Emily Johnson gets up for opening statements and doesn't pull any punches. Kidnapping, arson, drugs, sex crimes, bribery, and obstruction, she tells the jury. These are just some of the crimes that the defendant and his inner circle committed again and again. She paints this picture of Combs using lies, drugs, threats, and violence to force women into these freak-offs, which, if you're wondering, are allegedly drug-fueled sexual marathons with male prostitutes that Combs would direct like some twisted film producer. The defense strategy is bold, I'll give them that. Attorney Tenney basically admits the domestic violence, but argues that beating your girlfriend doesn't make you a sex trafficker. Had he been charged with domestic violence, we would not be here, she says. According to her, this is all about Combs' private, personal sex life and his swingers lifestyle. She's trying to sell the jury on the idea that everyone involved was a willing participant in some kind of adult, consensual fun time. Good luck with that when the witnesses start talking. And boy, do they talk! Cassie Ventura takes the stand May 13th, 2025, 8 months pregnant with her third child, and spends 4 days destroying any chance Combs has of walking out of that courthouse. She tells the jury how he controlled virtually every aspect of her life from 2007 to 2018. The freak-offs she describes aren't sexy parties. They're nightmares. Multi-day drug binges where Combs would allegedly force her to have sex with male prostitutes while he watched and directed. She talks about the beatings, the threats, the financial control. The defense tries to counter with photos from music videos like somehow looking happy on a film set means you weren't being abused at home. The prosecution has Cassie walk through the timeline of their relationship in excruciating detail. She met him when she was 19 and he was 37, already a massive power imbalance. By 2009, the violence had started. She describes how Combs would fly into jealous rages, accusing her of cheating, then beat her. After the beatings came the apologies, the gifts, the promises to change. Classic abuse cycle, just with private jets and designer bags instead of flowers from the gas station. The freak-offs started around 2009, too. Cassie testifies that Combs would arrange these encounters, flying in male sex workers, providing drugs like cocaine and ketamine, and directing the action like some kind of pornographic puppet master. These weren't quick encounters either. She describes sessions lasting days, fueled by drugs, with Combs watching and recording everything. When she tried to resist or showed reluctance, she says he'd threaten her career, remind her who controlled her music, who paid for her lifestyle. The recordings themselves became another tool of control, another threat hanging over her head. Here's where it gets really dark. Cassie's mom, Regina Ventura, gets on the stand and talks about taking out a home equity loan to pay Combs $20,000. Why? Because he was threatening to release sex tapes of her daughter. She reads from an email dated December 23, 2011, "The threats that have been made towards me by Sean Puffy Combs are that he is going to release 2 explicit sex tapes of me. A mother having to pay blackmail money to protect her daughter from her daughter's boyfriend. Let that sink in." Regina's testimony is devastating, not just for what she says, but how she says it. She describes being physically sick when she learned about the threats. She didn't understand a lot of what was happening, she tells the jury, but she understood enough to know her daughter was in danger. The prosecution introduces bank records showing the home equity loan, the wire transfer, the paper trail of a mother's desperation. $20,000 might be pocket change to Combs, but for Regina Ventura, it meant putting her home at risk to protect her child. Carrie Morgan takes the stand May 19th as Cassie's former best friend, and her testimony provides that crucial outside perspective prosecutors need. She witnessed 2 separate instances of Combs physically assaulting Cassie. She describes pleading with her friend to leave what she calls a toxic and abusive relationship. But here's the thing about being friends with someone in an abusive relationship with a billionaire. You can't just offer them your couch to crash on. Morgan testifies about feeling helpless, watching her friend trapped in this golden cage. The physical evidence is almost cartoonishly incriminating. Federal agents search Combs' Miami properties and find parts of 2 AR-15 assault rifles with the serial numbers filed off. These aren't tucked away in some gun safe. They're literally feet from where he allegedly kept his freak-off supplies. And what supplies? Baby oil. By-the-gallon lingerie, 12 pairs of platform heels, sex toys, and phones hidden in a Balenciaga boot. They also find a Gucci bag with cocaine and ketamine residue, plus pills shaped like Tesla logos containing MDMA and Xanax. It's like a DEA evidence locker exploded in his closet. Special Agent Gerard Gannon's testimony about these searches is methodical and devastating. He walks the jury through each room, each discovery, building this mosaic of criminal behavior. The agent describes finding the assault rifle parts in the same area where Combs allegedly stored materials for the freak-offs, suggesting these weapons were part of the intimidation toolkit. The sheer volume of supplies recovered suggests this wasn't occasional behavior, but a systematic operation. We're talking industrial quantities of lubricant, enough drugs to stock a pharmacy, and those 12 pairs of platform heels in various sizes. Because apparently even sexual coercion had a dress code. Then Kid Cudi shows up to testify, and if you thought this couldn't get more Hollywood, think again. Scott Mescudi tells the jury about dating Cassie briefly while she was with Combs, which apparently didn't sit well with the hip-hop mogul. Combs allegedly breaks into Cudi's Hollywood Hills home in December 2011, calmly telling him, "I want to talk to you." 2 months later, Cudi's Porsche 911 mysteriously explodes. The fire investigator finds a Molotov cocktail made from a 40-ounce Old English 800 bottle and a designer handkerchief. Because even when allegedly committing arson, Combs keeps it luxury brand. The defense scores a point when it comes out that the LAPD destroyed the fingerprint evidence from the burned Porsche. The judge has to tell the jury to disregard that testimony. But come on. You can't unhear that someone's car got firebombed right after they crossed Diddy. Capricorn Clark, a former Combs employee, delivers testimony that sounds like it's straight out of a crime thriller. She says Combs showed up at her house with a gun in December 2011, announcing, "We're going to kill Cudi." He allegedly kidnaps her at gunpoint, forcing her into a black Cadillac for a ride to Cudi's house. She's calling Cassie on a burner phone, begging, "Stop him. He's going to get himself killed." Another assistant, testifying as Mia to protect her identity, spends 3 days describing years of abuse from 2009 to 2017. She says she couldn't tell Combs no about anything, not even a sandwich. She alleges rape, forced oral sex, and physical violence, including a door-slamming incident that nearly broke her arm. When Cassie's lawsuit gets filed in 2023, Combs' security team allegedly tries to bribe her to stay quiet. The defense attorney gets so aggressive during cross-examination that the prosecutor accuses him of harassing the witness, asking about a Me Too money grab. Stay classy, counselor. Mia's testimony includes specific dates and locations that the prosecution meticulously corroborates with travel records and receipts. She describes a 2010 incident where Combs allegedly forced her to perform oral sex in his office at Bad Boy Records with employees right outside the door. Another time in 2013, she says he raped her in a hotel room after a music industry event, then had his assistant deliver Plan B the next morning like it was room service. The door-slamming incident she describes happened at his Los Angeles mansion in 2015, and she produces medical records showing treatment for a severely bruised arm. What makes Mia's testimony particularly damning is the paper trail. Text messages from Combs demanding she come to his hotel room at 3 a.m., emails from his team arranging her travel to be wherever he was, bank records showing payments that stopped the moment she left his employment. The defense tries to paint these as generous gifts from a wealthy boyfriend, but the prosecution connects each payment to specific incidents of alleged abuse. It's transactional in the worst possible way. Celebrity stylist Deontay Nash testifies about watching Combs beat Cassie until she bled, then panic when he saw the blood. Nash also says Combs would randomly hit him in the back of the head, because apparently abusing your girlfriend wasn't enough, you had to smack your employees too. Nash describes 2 specific incidents where Combs allegedly hit and kicked Ventura, and how Combs would make threats about Ventura's career in those explicit videos he kept as leverage. The stylist's testimony paints a picture of casual violence, where getting smacked by the boss was just another day at the office in Diddy's world. The June 3rd testimony brings us Brianna Bongalan, who claims Combs dangled her over a 17th floor balcony in 2016. The defense tries to prove Combs was in New York when this allegedly happened in L.A., but honestly, at this point, would anyone be surprised if he had a teleportation device? Here's my favorite courtroom moment. Judge Subramanian catches Combs nodding vigorously at the jury during testimony. The judge warns him that if he does it one more time, he's out of the courtroom. Imagine being such a control freak that you can't stop trying to influence the jury even when your freedom's on the line. Jane, another anonymous witness, testifies for 6 days about her relationship with Combs from 2021 to 2024. She describes sex trafficking, drug-fueled hotel nights, and physical abuse. She says she felt like a prostitute, which is exactly what the prosecution is trying to prove she was, just without the technical job title. Combs allegedly paid her rent, legal fees, and invested in her business, keeping her financially dependent. Classic abuser playbook, just with a bigger budget. Jane's testimony includes devastating details about how the hotel nights worked. Combs would text her a hotel name and room number. She'd arrive to find male sex workers already there, drugs laid out like a buffet and cameras set up. She testifies that saying no wasn't really an option when the man paying your rent and funding your business dreams was making demands. She describes using ketamine and ecstasy for the first time at these encounters, drugs she'd never touched before meeting Combs. The sessions would last 8 to 12 hours, sometimes longer, with Combs directing the action and demanding specific acts. The financial control Jane describes is particularly insidious. Combs didn't just pay her rent, he paid it directly to the landlord. Her business funding came with strings. She had to be available when he called, had to participate in the hotel nights, had to play the role of willing participant even when she felt dead inside. She produces bank records showing hundreds of thousands of dollars flowing from Combs-controlled accounts into her life, each payment coinciding with these encounters. The June 18th, 2024 altercation she describes is particularly telling. She punches him, he punches her back, leaving her with a black eye and forehead welt. And she still stays with him until his arrest. That's the thing about abuse and power and money. It creates these toxic cycles that make no sense from the outside looking in. The defense tries to use her staying as evidence it was consensual, but the prosecution points out that financial dependence is a chain just as strong as any physical restraint. In a surreal twist, Kanye West shows up June 13th to watch from the overflow room. He's there with Combs' son Christian, nodding when asked if he's supporting Diddy, but saying nothing else. Because this trial didn't have enough celebrity cameos already. Jonathan Perez, Combs' personal assistant from 2021 to 2024, provides the drug procurement details. Text messages show requests like, need $3,500 cash ASAP for his guest, and Perez describes getting drugs from dealers named Guido and Baby Girl. I mean, if you're running an alleged criminal enterprise, maybe don't put your drug orders in writing. Perez's testimony is a masterclass in how the banality of evil works in the modern age. He describes arranging freak-offs, like they were business meetings, coordinating with hotels, arranging car services. For the sex workers, making sure the drugs were procured and the supplies were stocked. He produces receipts for thousands of dollars in cash withdrawals, always conveniently just under the $10,000 reporting threshold. The prosecution shows text after text. He needs party favors for tonight. Make sure we have enough supplies for the weekend. Get the usual from Baby Girl. What's fascinating about Perez's testimony is how normalized this all became. He describes it as just part of the job, like ordering lunch or scheduling meetings. When the prosecutor asks if he ever questioned what he was doing, Perez admits he knew it was wrong, but says the money was too good. He was making six figures to essentially be a criminal enterprise's logistics coordinator, and he has the bank statements to prove it. The trial's been going 5 weeks now, with over 16 prosecution witnesses across 26 days of testimony. The government says they'll rest by June 20th, with more witnesses, including Brendan Paul, who they say was Combs' drug mule. They're not calling Christina Coram his chief of staff, which is interesting since they'd painted her as a co-conspirator. Maybe she flipped. Maybe they don't need her. Or maybe she knows where too many bodies are buried. The defense keeps hammering their message. This was all consensual adult behavior. Domestic violence isn't sex trafficking, and the prosecution is overreaching. They filed 2 mistrial motions already, both rejected. They're fighting hard, but when you've got surveillance video, financial records, multiple alleged victims, physical evidence, and a parade of employees all saying the same thing, it's an uphill battle. One juror's already been dismissed for lying about where she lived, which the defense called a thinly veiled effort to dismiss a black juror. The judge cited lack of candor, which is legal speak for you lied and we caught you. So where does this leave us? Combs is looking at life in prison for the racketeering charge, a mandatory minimum of 15 years for sex trafficking, and up to 10 years for the transportation charge. The man who once ruled hip-hop from penthouses and private jets might spend the rest of his life in a federal cell. What makes this trial so compelling isn't just the celebrity factor or the salacious details. It's that we're watching the unraveling of a system that protected a powerful man for decades. Every witness who takes that stand represents someone who finally said enough. Every piece of evidence is a crack in the wall of money and influence that shielded Combs from consequences. The government's painted a picture of a man who thought he was untouchable, who built an empire on music and used it to fund a personal kingdom where he was the only law. The freak-offs, the violence, the control, it all allegedly stems from a fundamental belief that money and power meant the rules didn't apply to him. As we wait for the defense to present their case and eventual jury deliberations, one thing's clear. That devilish stare Israel Flores saw in the hotel hallway was just the tip of the iceberg. Whether the jury convicts or acquits, we've seen behind the curtain of celebrity and power, and it's uglier than any of us imagined. The trial that started with a security guard refusing a bribe might end with one of music's biggest names learning that justice, unlike hotel security guards, can't be bought. Stay tuned, because this story's far from over, and something tells me the defense case is going to be just as wild as what we've heard so far. After all, when you're fighting charges this serious, you throw everything at the wall and hope something sticks. Even if it means arguing that your client's alleged swingers lifestyle somehow explains away assault rifles, arson, and women testifying they were trafficked. In the end, 12 jurors will decide if Sean Combs is a criminal mastermind or just a very bad boyfriend with unusual sexual preferences and terrible judgment in friends. Based on what we've heard so far, I wouldn't bet on the latter.
In a world where the darkest secrets lie just beneath the surface.
They said it was an accident, but the evidence says otherwise.
Where hidden killers roam, unnoticed, in the shadows.
I think you would definitely be looking at a blend of toxic, very bad narcissistic personality traits, and they will be vengeful and possibly resort to violence.
Join Tony Bruschi as he uncovers the truth behind the most chilling cases.
They said it was an accident, but the evidence clearly says otherwise.
Each episode, we dig deep into the minds of those who commit the unthinkable.
To your point on narcissism, he thinks in his own mind how witty he is.
Yeah.
But he lost that jury. I was done with him in 2 minutes.
From unsolved mysteries to infamous crimes.
Geez, you've just talked about how you've taught yourself how to do everything under the sun. I bet you did a YouTube video, how to best kill somebody with a knife.
Hidden Killers with Tony Bruschi takes you where few dare to go.
How does someone with such a dark secret go unnoticed for so long?
With multiple new episodes every single day.
We're not just telling stories, we're seeking justice.
Listen now on Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcasts. Just search for Hidden Killers with Tony Bruschi.